Welcome everyone. Welcome back to KonekTwa. Today with us is Gael Froget. He is an amazing, talented artist from Mauritius, and I'm so proud to have him as a guest. Please welcome Gael.
Hello, Adarsh. How are you?
I'm good, Gael. Thank you very much for coming and joining us today.
Thanks. I'm really honored. So finally, a podcast in Mauritius, and thanks for inviting me.
No problem. It was a pleasure. Tell me something, Gael. Everybody knows you from your wall murals, from your exhibitions, from the artist that you are. But my question for you is, were you when did you label yourself as an artist? Because I suppose a creative person from a very young age is a creative person, just they don't realize that they are. When did it click to you that yes, this is my future?
Um, well, it's a good question. I think I never really told myself, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I started painting quite late, but I was always creative. Um, Being a kid, I loved cooking. I was playing music. Tried all kind of stuff, and finally stumbled on art, on painting when I was 21, and I just use it as a therapy. I never really considered myself an artist. I call myself an artist because people ask me what I do, but I've always considered myself as someone who's using art as a vehicle for my, I don't know, for my shyness, or like a shell. And yeah.
Wow. I suppose taking the unconventional route for success, such as an artist does, you must have gotten a lot of backlash from people who knew you from well before, like people who, like perhaps your family or the friends around you, they would question like why take art?
Yeah. Um, well, of course, I think when I decided to leave everything to focus on painting. Well, already I was in fashion, so going into fashion was already something I wouldn't say hard to accept, but like my family, they would rather see me probably do something more academic, and especially that the fashion industry in Mauritius is, I mean,
It's still growing.
it's still growing. And so I was in fashion. I studied fashion, and one day I just decided to drop everything and start painting seriously, painting every day and do only that. That was a decision I took, and everyone told me it was a bad idea. Of course, everyone was worried. My parents, my friends, but I think in a way they were scared, but they knew I could do it. I was always that kind of kid. When I want to do something, I'm gonna do it, whether people are happy or not. And then I did it, and I'm still doing it. I mean, 8 years after, I'm still doing that. Only painting, not sitting in an office to earn money. So I'm sitting in my workshop and working all day. And yeah, there's a risk to it, but that's what's exciting, I think.
You struck something very interesting. Uh, Working all day. I think as an artist, it's very difficult to have a work-life balance. And you do mention sometimes that you don't take work home.
Yeah,
You you finish it in your workshop, and then the next thing
yeah,
is home. But it's so hard to do that, Gael.
it is.
As an artist, for me, I feel like days turn into months, turn into years, and I haven't met my friends, and I haven't been like interacting with people because sometimes it just
Mm,
happens.
yeah.
But how long did it take you to master the shutting down of the brain?
Well, the thing is that I've always worked alone here, so I'm in my workshop alone. Um, but before I started working in having a workshop, I used to work from home, And you know, it's a space where you're left with yourself all day. And so I was always working at home. I didn't have like a real like really like a personal life. Like
Like a
my
social.
friends wouldn't come over because I was always working. And then suddenly I start missing it, you know. You're always alone and you feel like, I don't know, like an hermit or something like that. So every weekend, then I was like, my rule was to, okay, I'm not gonna work during the weekends. I'm gonna socialize and meet people, because from Monday to Friday I'm alone. And it started like this. And the second step was to find a workshop to really um, dissociate the my workspace, because when you're an artist, I mean, your life is your work, and it's really difficult to create a separation. So I had to establish rules, you know, very strict rules. So I started by bringing all my stuff in the workshop and putting nothing in my house, like no paint, no. So I started doing that. So I would spend all my days in the workshop, and when I'm done, I would leave everything there and go home. And in my house, there wouldn't be anything for me to be able to work. So, well, for me, it was kind of easy because I've never been the kind of guy who wakes up at 3 in the morning who wants to paint. You know, like a lot of artists say that, but never happened to me. When I sleep, I sleep. But it's always working in there in my head, you know. And I always keep ideas and all. But now I try to have this discipline where when I'm home, I focus on my life at home,
So it
my
is.
girlfriend, you know.
Who's here with us today. So it is a discipline, isn't it? It is something you have to learn to do and you have to
Yeah.
stick to.
Well, I think being an artist requires a lot of discipline. People think that when you're an artist, yeah, you look like you're always like half dressed or whatever. It's true, but you have to be really specific on how you proceed with your work, and otherwise, I would stay at home all day in the sofa. To be honest, sometimes I would rather be at home and do nothing. Sometimes I go to the workshop, like, you know, like going like to an office. I know I'm not inspired today, but
You're
I'm gonna
forcing
do
yourself.
anyways. I'm gonna go anyways. And I had to establish this discipline to make it a serious job. You know, I mean, that's how I earn money, earn a living. So I have to create and to I take it as a duty. You know, I think an artist has a very important place in the society if he's taking his work seriously, to come up with new ideas and, you know, make people feel things. So yeah, it requires a discipline to be that kind of artist.
And you brushed on something very interesting, and I wanted to know more about that. As artists, we believe early on that all we're going to be doing is creating art. But what we see happening is we are not only creating art, we're also creating the marketing of the art. We're also in the conference rooms with the people who have to sign the contracts. We are also with. So there's so many things involved around an artist, and an artist ends up doing this more than just his art. Did you have a problem doing that when in your years?
Well, yeah. The good thing is that I come from fashion. Fashion is creating within a very, let's say, organized environment. You know, so I learned a lot from that, how to work, how to do marketing, how to sell an idea. You know, basically. And I was lucky enough to study that and to know how to put an idea out there, how to convince people about an idea. And but of course, most artists they have trouble with that. Even me, it's the my least favorite the least favorite part in the job, I would say, is to, like, do invoices or marketing. Even, to be honest, even the marketing is a hard thing to do. I'm still learning, and the platforms are constantly changing. You have to follow what people are, how people are seeing things. So when you do art, it's really important to be able to show what you're doing. There's not only galleries, there's not only walls, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's
Social media.
social media, and it's a very important space nowadays. And for me, it's as important as a gallery. So when I started painting, um, I I was not in a gallery yet. So the only way for me to show my work was Facebook. That was like more than 10 years ago, and then I realized that this is an important part of my work, because I can be doing amazing artworks, but if I don't do this part of the work, no one will see my work. And
So true. At the end of the
galleries
day,
are basically empty in Mauritius. You don't have a lot of people who go to galleries. They will come to an exhibition, but it's not a huge crowd.
at the end of the day, an artist ends up being a businessman more than just an artist.
Yeah, of course. I think it's like, it's like any kind of job or business. You still have to pay the bills. You still have to do your invoice. You still have to buy your raw material. You have to invest in equipment. So all that requires an organization, especially when you work alone. So it's a one-man show. I do everything. I do everything myself. So I go to the workshop in the morning. I have to clean it myself. I have to broom. I have to do my invoice. I have to wash my paintbrush. I have to, do all that kind of thing. I need to change the bulb. I have to. So to me, it's a choice working alone, and it's part. I put as much love in brooming the floor of my workshop than when I'm painting. And I think that's how any kind of job or business should be. If you like it,
You like every part
yeah,
of
you
it.
are, yeah.
There's something I wanted to talk about. You're self-taught. The majority of your art, it comes of your techniques come from learning by yourself. When you're in a situation like that, do you have this thing called an imposter syndrome? Because I struggle with that. I learned everything by myself from watching TV, from YouTube, whatever. And I always have this fear that I don't belong, or like I'm not good enough. Does that happen to you as well?
All the time. All the time. I think that's what keeps me working hard, because I always feel like the imposter syndrome. I don't know. I don't know if all the artists have it, but sometimes, when I started painting, I will never forget that I started selling in galleries, and people would buy my artwork for a crazy amount of money, because galleries, they put a commission on top of that, and they sell art really expensive, because that's how they think art should be treated. And they are right. I mean, a painting is, to me, it's like a therapy. So sometimes I did a painting, I was like, yeah, I did that in 20 minutes, and then you have a dude who come and buys it for a big sum of money, who's gonna that is gonna make your living possible. So I always felt, I was like, this dude is crazy. I mean, who would buy a piece of paper with like a few like scribbles and that kind? So it's still something that I still have that feeling, because you're doing something you love. You did it so easily, and someone is like, like drooling to buy that, saving money to buy that. but at the same time, what they're buying is all the, you know, all the suffering that it could be, because sometimes you paint for months and months and you don't sell it. People don't like it. And I'm the kind of artist who don't think about what people will think. So I really try to paint what I want to paint, what I want to see, what I would like to see when I wake up and all. So yeah, I do have this feeling, and it keeps me working harder and harder to make me feel better about myself.
Amazing. Because if there's anything, it's how well loved you are in Mauritius. Everybody has good things to say about you, but it's really interesting to know that.
That's good to know.
But it's really interesting to know that despite of all of those compliments and all of those successes, you still have that drive from the fact that you can be better.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, that's important, because I think an artist is always looking for a certain kind of achievement in his work. I mean, every artist obsession, I think, is to create the painting
Tell
or
me
the
something.
sculpture, and it never happens. So you're working towards something that you know will never happen, but you want to live. You know, you want. If one day I die, I want the last painting to be my best painting. So every painting has to be better than the one before.
Does that prevent you from seeing your older paintings?
Um,
Do you see only the flaws when you see your previous paintings?
I never really look back at my paintings. You know, when I do a painting, I will look at it for 20 minutes and feel satisfaction, and then it's done.
Okay.
I just put it aside and go to the next one.
Mhm.
But I don't really analyze my paintings. I do this. I started doing this recently because I remember one day I had like a block. I couldn't paint, and I didn't like what I was doing. So I had to look back at my first paintings, and it was really interesting because it felt like I was looking at my work for the first time. And then I started inspiring myself from my older paintings, and I didn't think it was a good idea. So then I decided I would never look back again. I'm just,
Wow.
creating.
Wow. For me, it's like if I look back at my old choreographies, firstly, I see how much I grew. Secondly, I see only the flaws. Something I need to train myself not to do is just look and stop looking at the flaws. You brushed on something. When you die, your last painting should be the best painting. But if I were to, because you're more than an artist, Gael, if I were to ask you, what should be your legacy? What is something that Mauritius or the world should know when we are not here anymore? Like, what is something that you would like people to remember you by?
I still don't know. To be honest, that might sound a bit how do you say that? So, not cliche, but that's something that is really close to my heart. I always think about what I will live when I go. I mean, it sounds a bit pretentious, but to be honest, that's like, I think, every artist's fantasy is to be known after you die. You know, like people talk about paintings of of this and this artist, and it makes you drool. It makes you want to be that guy one day. And at least what I'm trying to do is to create a Mauritian painting, a Mauritian way to paint. Like you have European art, you have African art, you have American art. I think Mauritian art is something unique on its own. And what I'm trying to achieve is, creating that style of painting that has already been created by masters like Malcolm de Chazal, Vaco. So what I'm trying to do is to adapt this style to the world we're living in right now. So I'm trying to make something which is really coherent and relevant with the time I'm living in. So I think when I'm going and all the artists of my generation, we're not going to be there. I think what we will leave is like how do you say that? It's like a mark of your time, how people thought at this time, what was our worries, what was our concerns, and that's what I'm trying to do. I don't aim for making beautiful decorative painting. I'm trying to put soul in my work, and hopefully it will last.
I wanted to also to know, Gael, something that I was talking to you about the other just a few hours ago, is when I went through all of your paintings on Instagram, one after the other, in a succession. What I noticed was my own. What I was trying to pay attention to was my own feelings when I was looking at these things, not just the drawing, not just the painting, but how I was feeling when I would see that. And sometimes what would happen was I would be shocked, and then I would wonder, like, when I see it, I'm shocked. When you drew it, you must have been shocked as well. Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people notice that kind of darkness in my work. To be honest, for me, it comes out quite naturally. I don't. When I do that, I don't mean to provoke, but in the same time, I want to be true with myself. When I'm in a certain state of mind, I want my painting to represent just that. And I want that when the person look at it, it makes the person feel more human. I think everyone has a dark side. A lot of people it's challenging for them to face that. And that's what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to show to people that it's okay. We all have a dark side, and I try to use colors and things to make it beautiful. But I want to keep this original darkness, because this is how I see art. I want it to be as unfiltered as possible.
Because you draw with acrylic, spray paint, and so many more material.
Yeah.
What is one material that you think you still need to master and you really want to work more with?
Definitely oil painting. It's something that requires a lot of learning, trying. I mean, the learning curve is quite, it's quite something with oil. A lot of artists use oil, but they never really master it. And for me, it's something I use in my work sometimes, but I'm not very confident with oil, because oil, it takes a long time to dry compared to acrylic, which is like really fast and easy to use. But the oil painting requires, for me, I think it requires more maturity, and that's something I'm trying to every year I am a bit better at working with oil paintings, but I never really did an exhibition with only oil paintings. But yeah, that's something that's my dream. That's to master oil and be able to produce beautiful paintings.
You talked about having a creative block. What's the longest time you spent without painting anything?
Wow, I think it was during the confinement, the lockdown. In the beginning, I was I don't know what happened. I couldn't paint for, I don't know, for about a month and a half. And it never happened to me before, since I started painting, I paint almost every day. At least, I do half a painting or a small drawing. During the lockdown in the beginning, I was trying to understand what was going on. And I couldn't paint. I was totally blocked, and I was at home. Since I never paint at home, it was a terrible feeling the first days, yeah. And then one day I decided, I was like, okay, I need to paint. And I sit myself in a room and I started painting, and it all came back, It all came back, but after a month and a half, something like that. So it was a good time for me to actually sit and think about what I want to do, where I want to go with my art, with my projects. And it was actually, really useful. It was a very important time for me to sit back and think about what I'm gonna do next. And also, I think the way that art is after the lockdown is completely different.
Really?
Yeah, for me it was so exciting because it's finally, you finally have like a universal, like something that is happening everywhere in the world. All the artists are finding ways to, during the lockdown, finding ways to show their art because the galleries were closed. And it made me think about the form itself of art, how art should be. Should it be more and more digital? Because now, a computer, like social media, is much more powerful than a gallery. So what is the place of a physical painting on this platform? So it made me think a lot about how can I create art that is not maybe physical, or I started getting a lot of ideas. So right now I'm still developing this idea of creating art which is made to sit on social media or on the internet rather than on a wall. So should it be the same thing? Should it be like a physical canvas, or can it be something crazier? So still figuring this out.
Yeah. I think it's really good to hear that you're trying to reinvent yourself in the current times and seeing, perhaps pushing the envelope or pushing your limits of an artist to see what more you can add to your arsenal. But you were absolutely right. Some of your paintings on murals, they don't. Social media doesn't do justice to them. I saw one that you had to crop in order to make it fit into an Instagram post, and I hated that about Instagram, that you had to crop it.
Yeah.
And then you took it from an angle that would cover everything, and then you just lose the effect. I hated that. I felt like
most people told me that, a lot of people, when they see my work in real, they tell me that, like social media doesn't do it justice. So that I've always, because for me a painting, it should be experienced in the flesh, because my own experience when I was self-educating myself about art, I was looking at art books, and I would look at a Rothko painting. Mark Rothko is the guy who paints like squares, squares on squares, and it's just block of colors. When I saw that, I was like, what the hell is that? I couldn't understand the painting, and then one day I walked in a museum in London. It was the Tate Modern, and I saw the same painting I've seen in a book, but in flesh, and I almost cried. It was just a square, just an orange square, but the feeling that it brought to me, the size of it, it made me feel small. It made me feel a whole lot of things, and this completely changed my way of seeing art, because I realized that when you see a painting in flesh, it's one thing, when you look at it online or in a book, it's a different thing. So I think there's room for improvement about presenting,
translating it to the
what
internet.
kind of art can we show online that does it justice, that is not a physical painting, but that is its own form of art that you could show. There's digital art, but it's digital art is something that is a bit, I think it's a broad term, you could do so many things with digital art, but I'm still trying to find what's to do with it.
Yeah, it's very broad. Even I'm learning it a little
Yeah.
bit. My final question to you, well, avant-dernier, c'est quand tu as un creative block, toi, tu fais quoi? Tu arrêtes, tu sais que ça va venir, like you know that the creative block is about to happen, so you just stop before it happens? Or when you're in the creative block, do you persevere, you just push forward, or do you just take a step back?
Most of the time, when I have a creative block, I just accept it. I don't let it bring me down or whatever. So it's actually a good thing, because if I always had ideas, I would be like this crazy guy always painting, because that's how I am. When I have an idea, I'm just gonna go and paint. When I have a creative block, I just take this time to do other things. Sometimes you have to push it. Sometimes when I'm preparing,
Deadlines.
when I'm preparing an exhibition, when the date is set, let's say 2 weeks before the exhibition, I have 20 paintings, 40 paintings to complete. Then you have to make everything you can to put yourself in the right environment. So it would be music, it would be, like any kind of excitement that could bring a new idea. So I would have my friends around, because this is where, ideas can spark. Sometimes I kind of force it, but I don't like to do it. So I do it just when I have to do it.
So interesting. I can relate so much on so many levels, Gael. My final question for you, Gael, is: are there any upcoming events or projects that you're really looking forward to in 2020?
I was before the lockdown. I was planning to do an exhibition in September, which is not happening. I don't know when galleries will be starting doing exhibitions again. They are opening again soon. But right now, it's more like a personal project. I'm spending a lot of time thinking about restructuring my workshop, like really, making use of a space. I have a big space in my workshop, but it's a huge mess. It's been a mess for years. The lockdown allowed me to think a lot about what I'm gonna do to change it. So I started working with wood. So doing my own shelves, doing my own working table. So it's more on the personal level, but it's very exciting. And this is kind of bringing me to make things that are 3D. Right now I'm making table and shelves, but I'm starting to consider, and I'm starting to play around with wood, to eventually make sculptures. I don't like the word sculpture, because a sculpture is something, I never learned sculpting anything, but what I'm trying to do is like maybe put pieces of material together and create like
Right.
something that it won't look like a sculpture, obviously. I don't know, but that's what I'm doing. I'm working with wood, and I won't say much about that right now because it's not clear yet where I'm heading, but it looks like, I'm gonna be doing like 3-dimensional artworks.
That's amazing. I can't wait for that. I just had one more question in my head before we get finished. Do you think in your opinion, this is just your opinion, um, a degree, a certificate in life is important nowadays for you to have a certificate or a degree in life? Why?
Well, I think it's definitely an advantage depending on which field you are. But if we have to talk about art, I think the best degree you can have is actually spending a lot of time reading about art. So obviously for me, I never studied art. I don't have a degree in art. I have a degree in fashion. I don't think it would stop me if I didn't have a degree. I don't think it's important at all for an artist, but studying itself is important. The piece of paper is not important. You can do it by yourself. I I I learn about art history by myself. Read so many books, so many movies about art, about Mauritian art, about German art, about African art, and I would encourage anyone to educate themselves. But obviously, I don't think you need this piece of paper if you're an artist or if you're gonna work for yourself. But you have to educate yourself.
Yeah.
That's the key to everything.
Yes, sir, Gael. Thank you again for coming and having this conversation with me. You're so inspirational, and I hope my listeners can also be inspired to not just express themselves, but express themselves knowing that there is a future for Mauritian artists in this local market. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. It was really great, and I hope I've been able to share a bit my journey and give a bit of hope to those who are losing faith.
Yeah. Thank you very much. See you guys next week.